Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the Duluth CSD special meeting of the Board of Directors on this date, February the 25th, 2022. This meeting is now called to order. Roll call. Bowman.
Judge.
Here.
Okay. Carroll.
Here.
D'Alessandro.
Here.
Rawson.
Here.
Roberts here. If you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. Thank you. Teresa, any public comments this
We
first
do
today?
not have any public comment.
Okay, very good. Item number C of the agenda, resolution 2022-04, recycling notice of intent to comply. Mr. Reynolds, did you want to open?
This is just a continuation of Rescindent's report at the last meeting. And we have with us Joanna Jen, who's special counsel in her firm. And she's been working on this for us on our behalf for a year. And what you do is just a quick background. This law was passed. We believe that we were qualified for an exemption because of the rules in this. But you have to go through a lot of steps to make that happen. So Ward and his firm made contact with Joanna. So that's kind of how this all fits together. We actually met with Joanna up at the CSDA conference. And so Debbie and us are a little bit more familiar with what Joanna's been doing. And actually we were hoping Joanna wouldn't have to do anything and everything was rocking along just fine. And then we, at the day of your board meeting, we should receive a letter saying, and I'm going to let her take it from there. But that's the background. That's how the players, this is really Ward's item, but he's got his expert here, Joanna. So, and I told Joanna the other day, something tells me I'm going to be working with her like she's an in-house staff for a while, because I suspect, you know, we're a road district primarily, but this is going to be the year of trash. So get ready. And this really, she's going to explain this is big ramifications to your resident, big time. I was talking to Alex, who will be here at your next meeting, to get us all educated as to this law is, it's a save the planet law. They're not holding out anything, and that's probably why we were selected to not get our rural status. So they want it cleaned up and to meet these standards, and they're not taking any prisoners. So, but we're talking maybe doubling or tripling your traffic and other issues. But, so it's serious. Or did I bring everybody up to speed just in terms of?
Perfect, Jim. I'm going to
So I
turn
guess
it right over.
Joanna.
I'm going to hand it right over to Joanna.
Okay, thank you, Ward, and thank you, Jim. Good afternoon, Madam President and Directors. My name is Joanna Jen. I'm with Best and Krieger. As background, Senate Bill 1383, which was signed into law in 2016, directed CalRecycle to adopt regulations to reduce organic waste by 50% of its 2014 baseline level by 2020 and by 75% by 2025. And organic waste includes food waste, green waste, and other organic materials. SB 1383 also required the recovery for human consumption of at least 20% of edible food that is currently thrown away in landfills. And the goal of SB 1383 is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. When food waste is disposed of in the landfills, there's little oxygen in the decomposition process, which results in the production of methane gas and affects global warming. Another goal of SB 1383 is to reduce food waste and to salvage edible food for people who may be in need. So CalRecycle's regulations, known as the SB 1383 regulations for the bill that it implements, took effect on January 1st of this year. And the regulations require local jurisdictions to provide organic waste collection services, establish an edible food recovery program, and to procure a certain quantity of recovered organic waste products every year. With regards to the edible food recovery program, there aren't any businesses that sell or prepare either raw packaged foods or prepared foods. So that isn't really affecting the district in any way. There aren't any commercial edible food generators. Regarding the recovered organic waste procurement target, that applies to city and county, so that doesn't really affect the district. What affects the district is the organic waste collection services requirement. Now, the SB 1383 regulations, as Jim says, does allow local jurisdictions to apply to CalRecycle for waivers from the organic waste collection requirements, including one based on low population. And there are two ways that the district can satisfy the conditions for a low population waiver, and I'll explain that. The first is that the census tract that the jurisdiction is located in must have a population density of less than 75 people per square mile that are served by the jurisdiction and are located in unincorporated portions of the county. And so, of course, looking at the district and how spread out all the properties are, it would be natural to think, okay, yes, the district satisfies this requirement. So since March of last year, 9 months before the regulations actually took effect, the district has been in communication with CalRecycle to confirm its eligibility under this definition, and it was informed that it was eligible for a low population waiver. Well, in late December of last year, a few days before the regulations were set to take effect on January 1st, CalRecycle informed the district that it did not qualify for the low population waiver because the population density of the entire census tract were more than 75 people per square mile for each of the 3 census tracts that the district is located in. And the district disputed this with CalRecycle because CalRecycle was also counting the population of the incorporated areas of Temecula and Murrieta, which are, of course, outside of the district's jurisdiction and boundaries. And also the cities provide their own separate solid waste collection services. So because of that feedback, we also looked at the other alternative way that the district could qualify for the low population waiver. And that criteria is that the population must be less than 7,500 residents, and the district must have disposed of less than 5,000 tons of solid waste as reported in the disposal reporting system. So currently CR&R provides trash and recycling services to approximately 2,300 residents in the district in the unincorporated areas of Riverside County. So that met the population requirement. In calendar year 2014, the district's tonnage was about 2,478 tons. However, despite providing this information, CalRecycle denied the waiver on this ground too by stating that the district did not report the information in CalRecycle's disposal reporting system. Well, there was and is no requirement that the district itself report the information in the disposal reporting system under state law or state regulations. And so cities and counties, though, are required to report. So the number that the county reported in 2014 would have included the district's tonnage information, it just would have been aggregated with the remaining unincorporated areas tonnage as well. So because of this, council submitted a letter to CalRecycle in January of this year in an effort to continue to resolve this issue because of the fiscal impact to the district and to its residents. And because the district's position is that it is eligible for a low population waiver and thus is fully compliant with the SB 1383 regulations. On February 15th, CalRecycle officially denied the district's application for a low population waiver and suggested that the district consider submitting a SB 619 notification of intent to comply. And as background on the 619 process, jurisdictions that CalRecycle determines that are out of compliance with the SB 1383 regulations as of January 1st are potentially subject to administrative penalties by CalRecycle up to $10,000 a day. SB 619, which was signed into law last year and took effect on January 1st, allows jurisdictions to secure relief from administrative penalties for any violations of the SB 1383 regulations for the 2022 calendar year. But to obtain the benefits of SB 619, the board must adopt a resolution adopting a notification of intent to comply with the SB 1383 regulations by March 1st, which is why we're having the special meeting today. So while the district's position is that it is fully compliant with the SB 1383 regulations and qualifies for a low population waiver, staff recommends that the board adopt Resolution 2022-04 in order to protect the district from any administrative penalties by CalRecycle for any violations of the SB 1383 regulations for the 2022 calendar year. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. And with that, that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
What's the next step? Is there any way for us to appeal this and go forward?
So there isn't any clear appeals process in the regulations itself, which is why we wanted to work with CalRecycle to try and resolve this before a decision was formally issued. That said, you could reach out and perhaps go through legislative efforts too as well to try and amend the law so that it trumps the regulations. And if you do that, that would be one way to approach that. And the other approach, of course, would be perhaps a legal approach. However, usually when agencies are interpreting their own regulations, they are given deference by the courts. And so that is a little bit more challenging. So we can explore other options to do that. And I would be happy to also discuss that at a future meeting too as well. And before you, though, is really the issue of the relief from the administrative penalties.
We wouldn't be questioning their regulations. We would just be questioning whether we should be part of Murrieta and Temecula. Is that not something different than, I mean, that's an interpretation that they have, that this is a single unit. I mean, what we would be questioning is why are we in that unit not, whether their regulations are valid or not. So maybe the courts would look at that differently.
That is possible. The only thing, though, is that the way the regulations read, the waivers themselves and the criteria for the eligibility of the waivers are detailed in the regulations that were adopted by CalRecycle. And so that means that they initiated the rulemaking process for those regulations. And the specific wording of the definition is really one that is in dispute as to how to interpret that and apply that. And so because they are CalRecycle's regulations, and CalRecycle is making a statement that they are interpreting the regulations to read that the census tract as a whole should be counted, regardless of whether there are incorporated areas within that, that could be an issue. So that is why amending or proposing legislation that would specify that the incorporated area should not be counted for the purposes of a low population waiver would fix that as an alternative.
One thing that talked about a few days ago is the interpretation of the rule and the way it's written. In the same sentence, they talk about in the unincorporated area. So I think, you know, there's one obstacle, which is can they, or could they, can we go meet with them? And say, well, wait a minute, you've double counted these people. See, that's where I think we'd have a great day in court, because now they're violating their own rules. Because those people that they're counting in our population have already been counted in those cities, and those cities' requirements are different. And that's why they put in that sentence about in the unincorporated area. So on its face, there's a problem here. Okay, those are incorporated, these are unincorporated. It doesn't appear that the intention of the rural was that it be an incorporated city. So anyway, I'm thinking we should explore that. The other thing, and I've just been kind of on the phone for the last 3 or 4 days talking to people. And so there's that avenue of maybe somehow getting them to maybe review their interpretation, maybe sit down face to face. Secondly, the legislative approach that I talked to Joanna about on Friday, Friday, I guess it was. We have a bill, and she did some research or just pulled it up on her computer. RSB 415 is still in idle mode. So we could go back to the senator and ask her to take the transportation issues out of that bill for gas tax and put something like, you know, to specify on the legislative level what the rules are for rural communities. That's a possible. I've gotten emails. It's amazing how this, you know, the tentacles, right, from lobbyists already, you know, they monitor this. And so who knows there, but as I told Joanna, you know, my fingers are still burnt from the lobbying that we spent on the gas tax and how much money it costs you guys. So I suspect you might be a little reluctant to go a legislative route right now, but actually just to have a bill, that is a very good thing. It moves us way ahead in the process. And then the other is to file a lawsuit. And but that's we know about that. It's still smoking here. Yeah. So those are really the kind of the 3 areas. And I've already, you know, as I said, asked the R&R who has a presentation. We just didn't think we were going to need to go down this road. So they have full-on presentations to educate us and stuff. Really, the next step is that if we can't get this worked out, here's what's going to happen to you folks as the customers, you know, of this. And so did that summarize what our 3 options are, Joanna?
Yes, I think that would be something that we could agendize for another meeting too. If there is any consideration of any litigation, I would recommend that that be placed as a closed session item.
Jim, a question? Hello?
Yeah, it's Chuck. Go ahead, Chuck.
Okay, thanks. You may have mentioned it and I didn't catch it, but I assume that filing the consent or what is it?
Resolution.
Yeah, the intent is, I guess, what I'm trying to say. That doesn't in any way reduce our options as far as seeking change, whether it be through legislative or some other means. I assume, is that correct?
That is correct. It doesn't. And I also understand the boards and districts position on this as well. And so I also included recitals in the resolution too that express that the district's position is that it is fully compliant with the SB 1383 regulations and that it is doing so in order to protect itself from any fines that CalRecycle could issue.
Right. And I presume if we were correct in our interpretation that we comply, then there's no additional obligation. Our intent to comply just simply means that that's in line with the fact that we believe we do comply. It seems like since this is a Senate bill, the direction to develop a strategy might be through the Senate, but obviously, as Jim said, that's going to be time consuming. Do you know if there is any intent to carry this forward beyond 2022?
I think that there would be more clarity on how the district would want to address this. So I think for now, in dealing with this issue of 2022, at least getting out and protecting itself from any fines, it has the rest of the year to decide how it wants to approach it, whether it's going to continue to try and resolve this issue, whether it feels that the district has exhausted all its options and will then try and work with CR&R to provide organic waste collection services. So there are those options, which is try and resolve this and fix it and not provide organic waste services, whether that be through legislation or some other means, or provide organic waste collection services. But at least that gives you the rest of the year to figure that out.
Yeah, of course, a year may not be enough for the Senate, but if we can
Oh, I see what you're saying.
meet the intent, which I think we do, then what we're dealing with is resolving the difference between the intent and the application in the means that they have defined that it be calculated. So perhaps we can get something through the Senate that would allow a way to let the intent become the dominant criteria.
And thank you too I understand what you're saying. So right now, just as background on the legislative process, the California legislature has started up again. The deadline to introduce bills just recently passed a few weeks ago. But the deadline for any legislation to be passed by the legislature is in early fall. It's usually like late summer after August or September. And then after that, the governor has less than a month to sign any bills into law. So it would be clear whether there is a legislative solution by fall, before the end of the calendar year.
That's where a bill could come in because the deadline passed, but ours is still pending.
Right,
So that whole process of going through it takes months.
right,
We're already there.
right.
I don't know if that's gonna work, but when she started, when she first mentioned this to me, I said, wait a minute. We So that you have a lot of options. It's now, I think, that we've got to explore them and come up with a game plan.
It seems, Jim, your first comment there about approaching them and having that discussion and trying to get them is really a first step.
Yes.
And I think it seems like the right way to go, and also probably the least expensive way to go. I think legislative, when we learned this the last time, and times two, not one, but
Right.
two,
Yeah.
that getting, we're a small, very, very small, minuscule component of California. And for California to pass a law that helps us is expecting an enormous amount. And we learned the first time that it wasn't going to work. And we learned the second time that it wasn't going to work. Now, if that were to change and all rural communities would come together, then that's a different thing. Then you're not a minuscule part of the state. Then there's something to participate in with others.
Right.
And I think that's a possibility, but I think going it alone is a couple of $100,000, and the option and possibility is probably slim.
So if I can ask, so basically this meeting is to approve this resolution,
Right.
so we can stop not having any fines. And after that, figure out what we're gonna do
Correct.
right away. Okay,
Right.
fine. That's good.
So there's a lot of options on the table. We have to stop the clock.
I'll move acceptance of the resolution.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, Bowman?
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
Alessandri?
Aye.
Austin?
Aye.
Roberts? Aye. Unanimously approved. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
But we will have this item on your agenda at the next meeting. It's more of an informational, somebody we've talked about. Maybe we can work on them and have something a little more definitive to be able to discuss.
Okay.
But in the meantime, you might make some contact
We
with
can,
with that
we can
group.
talk to them. And Joanna and I have not talked about that. That came about, after the vote. But could we get a FaceTime with the people who are turning us down? Joanna?
We could set up a meeting or contact Habitat to see if that's possible if you would like to.
So we can explore them, see
Yes.
if maybe.
Yes, yes,
And,
definitely.
see what, at least we get our day in court.
Right.
Right.
I think that's a good way to approach it, first step.
Right. Exactly. But you also mentioned that someone was going to come out at the next meeting.
That's the R&R.
Uh-huh,
They're gonna give a presentation,
uh-huh,
just of what the downside is. Well, it depends on how you look at it. But,
Right.
uh-huh.
what the issue really is, so you'll be cognizant of, what they're trying to do,
Uh-huh.
and then what the impacts could be in implementing.
On the other hand, this has some merit to it. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of methane production
Oh, yeah.
from waste sites. And a lot of that comes from urban areas because of restaurants and places like that. So it makes some sense in terms of the overall benefit to the planet. The issue for us is that it's inordinately expensive for us to do that because of the nature of our community.
And the nature of your community is the program is designed for Temecula, Marietta.
Right.
We
Not for
don't have
us.
one commercial property.
Right, correct.
We don't have any restaurants.
Correct.
And so you could kind of, you do it.
Correct.
And that's what really this was all designed to do.
Right.
Yeah, but then they get into their administrative paperwork and then, like, they're using federal census tracts on a state program.
Right.
Well, Department of Finance it's California Department of Finance, deals with boundary issues and population and things like that. But somebody here, and they're writing their administrative regulations through that, And if you work with those census tracts, you would know, because the federal government's doing it's for a different purpose, okay? And so why they would have selected that, it's somebody whoever wrote that doesn't understand how you use those census tract data. And so that's why I think maybe if we talk to them,
Right,
I mean, every other state program I've ever worked on, it's all DOF numbers. They do
Right.
population analysis year by year by year. And so I don't know. I don't really not.
worth a shot.
Yeah. But yeah, I think the program makes sense,
Sure.
but not, where we're at. Then you start looking at the practical things of CR&R, talk to you about running extra check, not potentially. It's just, and probably to get this bill through, which authorized this, they probably needed the rural exemption in there or something
Get it passed.
to get it passed,
Right.
because most of the state would have voted for it, right? So anyway, I don't know.
In that presentation, I don't know if you know already, CR&R, because once the folks see the agenda, they want to figure or pin into what's this going to cost us? Are they going to be, give them a
Well,
heads up?
you have a better idea than what I'm passing along. I mean, I didn't know anything 2 weeks ago, and just what I've picked up, is gonna be highly expensive compared to where you are right now. And I was surprised, Joanna, that's the first time I've heard the number of how much, that 2,200 number versus 4,000, the limit of 4,000.
The tonnage of 5,000 tons.
Yeah, so we're way below, right?
Yeah.
Which surprises me. I thought we'd be a little closer up there. But once again, it would indicate the extreme difference between where we're sitting right now and up on the hill.
It may not actually be very costly to us if you think of it this way. And I don't understand the program and what's required, but if we have no restaurants, we have no organic waste.
We really don't.
So they won't need an extra truck.
Maybe not. I don't see, that's what CR&R now. Now, I didn't pursue it on the phone.
Right.
An hour conversation. But there's a facilities issue.
Yes, that may be the issue.
Yeah, because when I dialed the phone, I was hoping he was going to say to me, well, all we've got to do is resort it down in our plant in Paris. It's a different kind of, but once they sort it, they don't have a place to process it.
Right,
That kind of the food waste.
right.
So they would, in theory, and I don't know for sure, but I think the idea is they would have to run a separate truck up here to Duluth and take it somewhere else.
But if there's nothing to collect,
Nothing to
Right.
collect.
that's my point.
But if you're required to do it,
Well, you can have a truck, but it's only gonna make a very quick run.
but you're still gonna be paid for
I
that.
understand what you're saying.
And
Yeah.
so, and he gave me an example of Blythe. He does trash, pick up in Blythe, right on the Colorado River. They've got to pay Kingman, Arizona to take it, this new waste, solid waste, whatever. And Kingman, Arizona knows they're the only place on that side of the whole state of Arizona. So they're just sitting there saying, oh, come on.
Right.
And they're just, it's astronomical price and there's no alternative. But state isn't giving them the break. It's a very unique situation, then drive into Phoenix,
Right.
there's nothing there,
No.
So can't the folks in the state
Jim, another question.
understand that? Yeah.
Do we have a formally recognized population for the area from our tax rolls?
We do not, and the populations are done by the state, and it's the Department of Finance that maintains all the populations like this. When you see it on the freeway signs, city of Marietta, and there's a population number. That comes from the State Department of Finance. So every city gets a population number, every county, but with districts, because we don't get tax money that way. However, I believe that we could use the data that DOF provides because they've got it all over the state. But then because the way the tax distribution from Sacramento locally, it's always based on their number, but there's no pipeline to special districts because they're locally taxed. So they don't keep those numbers. So we do not have an official number, but we can tell by a couple of things. When you become a new city, as I've been through that before, it's one whole decade before you can use the federal census to determine what your population is. But that all goes to DOF anyway. So you don't really know what your true population is. So in that interim period of time, you get registered voters times, and then a number that they establish periodically. And it's usually like about 3.2 or something like that. Because in urban areas, so if you're suburban, you make out for like 8 years, that number is higher.
Yeah, I presume that we have a number of households, given that a separate tax is collected from people in the district. So there must be a list of the number of households or properties that contribute to that. Is that helpful in any way?
We have that number, but it's how you then multiply some formula to achieve population.
Yeah.
So, but Department of Finance has that number. We could use our registered voters, and it would be about 2,300
Right.
probably.
Right.
And it's just every year they change. It's 3.2, 3. So it's based on how many kids you have. Each voter has. So, but see, that would be a more fair way using Department of Finance, State of California numbers. They can call the county and get our voter registration, multiply that factor as if we were a new city, and there we go. And it would be fair because that's the way the state of California does it. I don't know how they got this, but again, this is probably the administrative regulations. They pass the law, give it over to a department. A bunch of people sit around that probably don't really know how the government works, and they write these regulations, and then they start trying to implement them, and here's an example. It really doesn't make sense. We're not trying to not comply, but they're basically telling us we comply, but then they're changing their mind, thinking we're trying to trick them or something like that. We truly don't qualify under their own terms, except they've done this one overlay. Administrative overlay that makes no sense. So anyway, I think it's easier for people to accept a regulation if you agree that it's fairly calculated. And if it wasn't, we'd be on down the road planning what we're gonna do. But
Okay.
to be continued.
Yes, definitely. Okay, see item D, General Manager's Report. You're good to go?
That's
Legal.
it.
Okay, Legal Counsel Matters, Mr. Simmons, anything else?
Mute.
Yeah, sorry about that. Don't you think you've had enough legal report tonight?
Yeah, I think so, yes.
Nothing more, Madam President.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you, everyone. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
45, 47 minutes.
That's not, when they're saying organic waste, they're talking about food waste.
Yeah.
Right.
Not our